His book is called Sentinel, book two in the Joshua Duffy series. And New York Times bestselling author Mark Greaney joins us now. Mark, welcome back to the show.
Hey, good to see you.
Good to see you, sir. And as I mentioned, I couldn't put the book down. It's really a great read. And I was wondering about the main character, Joshua Duffy, if you had based him on someone you know, or if he's a composite character.
Wow, I've based him on a lot of people I know. This is the second book in a series. The first one was called Armored. And as I was researching Armored, or even before I was researching Armored, I was doing a lot of training with civilian military contractors. So kind of high threat bodyguard types. And I was doing training with these guys and really getting to know them. And I just decided I wanted to write a book about these guys because it's a very sounds like a sexy job or whatever, but it's a very blue collar job. You live in a truck and your tools happen to be firearms, but I mean, it's not dissimilar to a lot of other labor positions, but they were very interesting people. And, they're family people, good moral code. They do what they do because they love what they do, but also they're trying to make a living and provide food for their families. So I just got the idea of Josh from all these different guys. I didn't want to make him. I write the Gray Man books, and that character is very elevated. He's a super spy and all that. And I wanted to make a guy who's very good at what he does, but he's not a ninja or a commando or anything like that. So that was the initial idea for Josh.
Yeah, I could see that. And I love the part where he had to run to the truck. It was ordered to run to the truck to take over the
Oh yeah, yeah,
machine gun. And,
yeah.
his inner turmoil about that.
Yeah, didn't make sense tactically, but it's what what he was ordered to do.
Yeah, yeah. And he followed orders, obviously. Now, part of the premise of the book is China's infiltration into Africa, into more power over those countries. And is this something that concerned you or you wanted to bring light to?
Yes, it's obviously a fictionalized story, but there is Chinese intelligence activity. It's very strong in Africa in a lot of different ways, and not just intelligence activity. There's something they call debt trap diplomacy, where the Chinese banks have loaned billions and billions of dollars to developing nations around the world and 20 nations in Africa. And the fear is that that can be used to sort of usurp the individual nations' sovereignty when they can't pay these debts back. So there's that. There's also China's quest for natural resources throughout the region of China. And, there's other things that the Chinese are doing. They're actually building ostensibly to create goodwill between China and Africa. They're building government buildings for different African countries, including the foreign ministry building in Ghana, which is where I did my research and where the book is based. But they build these big government buildings and parliaments and whatnot. And then in the case of the African Union building that they built in Ethiopia, the Chinese were caught infiltrating the computer networks there because they built the building and they found a way in. So there's a lot of people think it's done for intelligence reasons, and the Chinese are also exporting their police training and their surveillance state technology to African nations, and a lot of people think they're doing that so it's to make it a two-way street so they can get information back.
Sure. Is this, I think it's called the Belt and Road Initiative?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Belt and Road Initiative. It's a Chinese strategic priority to increase investments throughout all over the developing world, Asia and in Africa and Middle East, and in so doing to kind of create these tighter bonds between the countries. But again, in many people say that there's a negative aspect to that, and I would tend to agree. And for purposes of my story, there's a very negative aspect to it.
Yeah, because these countries are on the hook then.
Yeah, they're completely on the hook. If the port is built by the Chinese, then theoretically, if they can't pay the Chinese back, then the Chinese can have some access to the you know, to the borders of that nation via their port.
Yeah, yeah, I can see. Now, this book is a follow-up to Armored, which began as an audiobook drama, and I know we spoke about that book before. Is this book, Sentinel, going to become an audiobook drama or go down the audiobook thriller path?
Yeah, it's just being released as a regular audiobook thriller. The audio drama was uh, a lot of fun and it was fulfilling to listen to it. It was a lot of work. It was a lot more
Yeah.
work than I thought it would be. I had never written anything like that. But I mean, how that all came about was I had a story idea that I had not really been able to flesh out very well on my own. And Audible approached me about doing an audio drama. And I was like, well, I have this plot. If you like it, then suddenly there'll be somebody breathing down my neck to finish it, and I'll probably work harder and get it finished. And that worked out really well. And I really like the audio drama. We
Mm,
just didn't write this one that way. I mean, you really have to write two different, because I wrote the novel Armored after I wrote the audio drama, and
yeah,
I thought I
no,
would just be going back in and just fleshing it out a little bit more, but you're starting from scratch. It's the same story, so you've got these ideas, but it seems like it was just as much work as writing a book, you know, out of my head.
it's sort of two different animals. It's almost like a
Very much.
screenplay.
Yeah, it's a lot closer to a screenplay, but as you're writing it as a screenplay, you realize, okay, everything has to be an audio cue. You can't do anything that's not audio related.
Yeah, as I say to people, because I write screenplays as well, as opposed to novels, which I write as well, is you can't think your way down a road. Everything has to be,
Right.
explained in a screenplay of
Yeah.
the audio and the drama and
Yeah.
sounds and sound effects.
And very economically. So that made it tough for me. I mean, I've written a 217,000 word book. So you should have seen my sad attempt to write a 100 page screenplay. I was on about page 180 and I didn't even have the second half of the story going yet. So I kind of shucked my screenplay adventure and then turned it into a novel.
Is screenplays, if you have a word count, it's probably only 20, 30,000 words.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. Now, you mentioned your research before, and that was one of my questions. If you actually traveled to Africa, to Ghana, to do research on the ground for this book.
I did. I went to West Africa. I went to Accra, Ghana, which is the capital, and I spent several days with at the embassy with the diplomatic security service, because my hero, Josh Duffy, he's a former military contractor, but now he's a diplomatic security special agent working as what's called an assistant regional security officer in an embassy. So he
Mm,
and his family, his wife works for State Department as well, and they all moved to Ghana. So I did get to go there, spend a lot of time with diplomatic security. They were really, really open and welcoming.
oh,
They have a
great.
very busy job, and the whole time I was there, every one of them was very nice and giving of their time. But the whole time I was there, I could tell very well that I was in the way. I mean, they had a lot to do, and a lot of things came up while I was there. There was a lot of times where I had to go stand out in the hall so they could talk about one thing or another. So it's very active, a very big embassy. I think 650 employees, something like that. And you know, it's a relatively stable nation
Oh,
compared to all the other nations in the coup belt around it. But it's still a very active place. But they were very, very welcoming. The Marines there, I met the ambassador and the charge d'affaires and political chief and all these people, and they were very giving of their time and information. I also got to leave. I spent a day touring the city with a guide, but I also got to leave the city and go north out of the capital
mm,
to the Akosombo Dam, which is a very large hydroelectric dam that features heavily in the book.
yeah,
And I spent time there and on the Volta River and in that whole region, because I knew I was going to make that part of the book as well. So it was a really, really good research trip that helped the book a lot.
yeah, I can imagine. Now, your Gray Man books have been, at least one of them that I know of, has been turned into the Netflix film, and
Mhm,
I know you had talks about series for other books.
mhm,
Is this series, I'll call it the Armored series, Josh
mhm.
Duffy series. Do
Yeah.
you see this moving into television and film as well?
Well, it's already been picked up by Lionsgate TV,
Oh,
so
congratulations.
thank you. I'm hopeful, but you know as well as I do that makes it a 2 in a million shot as opposed to a 1 in a million shot or something like that. So it's definitely a positive and definitely something they're talking about working on. Who knows if it'll come to fruition? I hope so. I enjoy writing the character. I enjoy his wife, writing the character of Josh's wife, Nicole.
Nikki.
She's a very strong character who is basically a co-protagonist through much of this book. And it's fun, dynamic to write, especially writing the Gray Man series because it feels very distinct to me.
Yeah, very different. And was that the Armored book that was picked up, or is it picked up as a series?
Yeah. So it's a little weird, but yeah, it was the first one that was picked up. But I don't think I can go out and like get Sentinel optioned because Armored's been picked up with those
Yeah,
characters. So I think it's standing firm with Lionsgate, and I'm happy about that.
good. Well, much success with that, that's for sure.
Thanks.
The book is called Sentinel. Mark, thanks so much for joining us today, and good luck
Great to
with the
see you
book.
again. Thank you so much.
That's it for this episode. Be sure to check out some of our other videos.
Music licensed from audioblocks.com. Point of the Spear is produced by RSC Media Group.